and welcome to the ArchFilm Festival 2022. My name is Maria and this is...
My name is Matilda and we're both studying architecture here in Lund.
Yeah, and today we will watch a lot of movies, so
let's roll the first clip.
Hi everyone, my name is Mikola. I am an actor and a co-producer of What Shall We Do With These Buildings. Currently I am in the apartment in Kharkiv where the director and the filmmaker of this film stayed throughout the filmmaking process, and this is actually behind me. Behind these doors the film was edited. It's an honor to be screened at the festival in Sweden. It's a chance for me to speak up and to say that we are still in war. We are still fighting for our right to exist, for our freedom, and on behalf of the Ukrainian people, I thank every single one who helps Ukraine in any way, and giving a chance to this film to be screened is one of these actions of solidarity, because this film it was shot 6 months before the 24th of February, before the full-scale invasion by Russians happened, and back then my native city Kharkiv was completely different to what it looks right now. Since then, it has been shelled almost every single day, and the shellings continue. And that's a chance for us here and for you there to see the city for what it was like back then. For me, this film is very much about the complex society that we lived in for decades here in Ukraine, especially in the eastern part, where we had to constantly resist Russian attempts to make the Ukrainian identity very vague and unclear. And at the same time, this is pure artistic research of the effect that architecture can have on the mindset, on the values and behavioral patterns of the society. And I would like to thank everyone who made this screening possible. Enjoy. Слава Україні!
В мене дуже починаю, напевно, з цієї будівлі.
Харьков – это такая и не одна реализованная утопия, да?
Ким? Я не знаю, як називається юридична особа, яка володіє цією будівлею, але десь років ніхто не називає.
Ні, не можна. Ми ж в Україні живемо.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hi. We're happy to have you here today.
Yes, and we would like to ask you some questions about your film.
Many people after the 24th of February had to move from the east of Ukraine to the west. And so it was, in a way, a very important way of trying to keep people connected with the city that they left. and in that way, emotionally, it helped people get sort of some kind of help. And on the other hand, people from the west of Ukraine could get to know PT by the film a bit better, I guess. So, yeah.
In your film, you're having dancers. Why are you combining dance with architecture?
Well, yeah. Again, so this is probably a question for a director, but as one of the movers, I can say that again. So it goes back to director's background and my background. We were students at the theater school in Paris, and that theater school is dealing with the as a main instrument for theatrical expression. And in the manner that we worked in that theater school, we always went back to the idea of a constant relationship between the space and the body. So it was always in that relationship that we were looking for the movement, and we were researching how the movement built itself in space. So and architecture seemed like a very exciting way to go about exploring how the body reacts to something that is static, that does not move, yet it moves a lot because it has dynamics in it, because it has its own rhythms, its own music, because it makes you move in certain ways, even physically. Some buildings make you go around in order for you to enter them, other than just have entrance from all of the sides. Even in that very practical way, buildings are impacted the way that we move. But also in an artistical way, buildings make you feel certain ways. So they cause dynamics inside our human souls and bodies. So yeah, it was really that. It was our background that made that connection.
Thank you for participating. We were glad to have you here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Yeah.
When did you know you wanted to be together seriously?
I think we'd been dating for about a month when I thought that we should probably get married someday.
I remember that. And I was like, well, yes, definitely.
And are you guys gonna get married?
We're working on it.
If we can figure out an actual way to do it. My health insurance would be unaffordable if we actually got married. It's called Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility syndrome. The connective tissues in my body are more elastic than they are supposed to be. Every doctor, the first thing they know about the opioid epidemic is that people got conned on OxyContin. They think that all of those medications are bad for everybody in almost every circumstance. And if you happen to be a person who has an illness that doesn't respond to other medications, you meet a wall of willful ignorance when it comes to your treatment.
Självklart finns det en naturlig variation i dagsljus. Det gör det ju. Men det finns inte flimmer på det sätt i dagsljus. Man skulle i och för sig såklart kunna tänka sig extrema situationer eller väldigt speciella situationer. Men jag skulle säga att de flesta naturliga variationer i dagsljus är ändå önskvärda.
Research has also identified that daylighting has bactericidal effects, meaning that it kills bacteria. Recent research shows that light through windows could be a potential buffer against the spread of pathogens in buildings.
We published a paper about how daylight exposure regulates and modulates the bacterial communities living inside of everyday household dust. And that may seem like a little bit of a leap, but basically what we found was that indeed daylight impacts indoor microbial life. So bacterial life in particular is what we examined, and we found that rooms that did not have access to daylight had higher abundances of viable bacterial cells in the household dust. And so this really exemplifies how daylight is not just an indoor environmental quality variable, it's an indoor air quality variable, such that rooms with daylight arguably are healthier rooms for breathing.
The bactericidal potential of ordinary window-filtered sunlight may be similar to that of ultraviolet light across dosages that are relevant in actual buildings. This may be very important in the future, especially in healthcare environments and even in schools, to combat the spread of contagious diseases.
We're sitting here with Marie-Claude and Nicholas Wakeham, and which have created the film Under Nordic Sky. You highlight the importance of daylight in this film. Where did this idea come from, and how was the filmmaking process?
Hello, thank you for this question. So the idea of daylight comes from my own research. I've been researching about the effect of daylight during almost 25 years. And at the beginning, it was the idea to have a film for pedagogical purposes at Lund University. So my film idea was more like to have instruction films, to teach architects and urban planners what they should know about daylighting. But then with the meeting with Nicolas, who is more like a filmmaker making films that are a bit more artistic, then the film changed very much from my original idea, which I think was good. So I like the films. They are much more artistic and poetic than what I had envisioned from the beginning. And that's, I think, is good. Yes.
Thank you. For how long have you been working with this film?
I think the process started autumn 2019. It's not been a full-time project since then, but pretty much, and in periods very intense. So we've filmed a lot of interviews, exteriors, interiors, trying to show the pros and cons with good city planning and bad city planning regarding daylight. Cities are becoming more dense and the streets more shallow, is that the word? Narrow. And the balconies deeper, which makes the lower floors darker, which is a huge problem in a lot of cities around the world. So I would say that this film is perhaps one of the most important and political films of the whole festival, because it has to do with health aspects as well. So yeah, a lot of time in the editing, but Marie-Claude is really good coming in with her bird view and looking and pointing out structural problems in the editing. So we've had a good collaboration. What do you say?
I think that if you work this long together, and it's really like in pair, because we have had to sit together sometimes for hours, looking at the film and looking at scenes, and then you really need to like each other a lot, and I think we do, and we have a strong relation also, I think, and I hope. And so that also helps to, I think it's really key if you're going to do such film between a researcher and a filmmaker, the relation has to be very strong. so that communication-wise also you understand each other. And I know now also that some things maybe I did not communicate so well to Nicola. I had them in my head, but then I didn't verbalize them enough. And that's why I really hope that we'll get more film money, because now I know exactly how to communicate with him. We know each other now, and I know what to say or what not to say, or how to. So it's been a learning process for both of us, I think. But it's been beautiful, and we have had so much fun doing this. So it's been a really nice experience.
Thank you.
How would you describe your film to someone who has not yet watched it?
I can start, and I think Marie-Claude will say the best things. But for me, not being an expert on the area, learned a lot, because living in the Nordics, we have even more months of darkness. And everyone knows that humans need daylight to live. It's like a flower. But it's kind of scary what's happening in cities and city planning and architecture when a lot of very educated people don't think about the daylight aspect already at the sketch phase. So it's a film about the importance of daylight in relationship to humans, health, and buildings. Super interesting, and I hope we've made it in such a way that everyone can understand a lot of it, because that's been an ambition, trying to find a level of facts so it doesn't go over the head of the viewer.
Yeah, I think also there is research about the effect of light on health and on social behavior and performance at work and in school. And new research is coming up every other year. And the last one is about, the effect of UVA radiation on the eye, of the development of the eye, for example, where we see an increase in myopia in some cities around the world because children don't go out anymore. And that is very serious, because if you have that problem, you can end up being blind later on in life. And some cities are actually saying, well, if we don't change the way our cities are planned to make sure that people go out, we're going to have blind people walking around, So it is, people don't realize how much of our evolution is tied to light and the cycle of night and day at the cellular level in any organism. And so this is a key question. And for us here in the north, we are even more affected by that. As Nicola was saying, for months of the year, light is very scarce. And I wish that this was something that the urban planners and the cities were taking very seriously, which I don't think they do. I think that the planning at the moment is not really considering it sufficiently, that we live in a special place on Earth and we have to have a special response to the place where we are.
Thank you. Let's move on to the movie.
Toda casa tem uma alma. Tem um ritmo próprio, um som que só se escuta se seu íntimo deixar. Toda casa tem uma luz. Ela é, na verdade, a dona da casa. Quando ela entra, a casa vive, mesmo que não tenha ninguém dentro. Olá, amigos do ArchFilm Land. Meu nome é Jean Begerot, eu sou diretor de filmes e documentários, atuo no Brasil. E um dos filmes que a gente está tendo a honra de apresentar para vocês é A Casa do Lelé. Lelé foi um arquiteto brasileiro, o João Filgueiras Lima, era conhecido como Lelé. e ele teve uma atuação muito importante algumas décadas atrás. E talvez ele não tenha ficado tão famoso ou tão reconhecido quanto Oscar Niemeyer, Paulo Mendes da Rocha, outros grandes nomes da arquitetura brasileira, pela sua simplicidade. Ele privilegiava muito as relações humanas e como que isso, de alguma forma, interferia na arquitetura. Ele tinha uma arquitetura do coração. A gente tentou passar um pouco dessa atmosfera para o filme, mostrando justamente a arquitetura que não se vê, a arquitetura que fica impregnada nas paredes, a arquitetura que a gente respira, que não é necessariamente feita de concreto e madeira, mas ela existe. Foi uma brincadeira lúdica e, na verdade, foi uma homenagem que a gente fez para esse grande nome, esse grande gênio da arquitetura brasileira. E é uma honra poder dividir um pouquinho dessa obra com vocês. Muito obrigado e muito obrigado aos jurados do festival que nos escolheram. Boa noite.
Okay, welcome to our exhibition with architecture student at Lund University. The theme was the incredible office. So here we're having Simone.
Hello. So our project was surrounded or inspired by the technology in the office and how we're always surrounded by it and how it kind of like crawls. It's hard to get away from. Even when you're at home, you still have your laptop and stuff like that. So that's what inspired this chair and also this jacket that we've created in our group. And yeah, we wanted to make something that is inspired by the feeling and like the claustrophobic feeling of the technology these days. And also we wanted to think about the future and what it's going to be like, if it's going to continue, and how our everyday life is going to be affected by it. So we have this jacket that's inspired by the straight jacket. So this is actually the back where you close it. And then we have these cables that are sewn into this plastic, 2 layers of plastic fabric. And the thing with these 2 objects that we've created is that it's very hard to get out of them. You kind of need help by a second person to get out of both the jacket and the chair because of like the angles in our chair, and also the we have actually woven a lot of electronic waste that were given to us by LTH into this seating little thing, and then it's connected by an elastic thread to this steel frame that we've created from scratch. So it makes, when you sit in it, you sink in into it, and then it gets very difficult to get out of, and that's kind of our concept for this project. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Simone. Thank you. And here we have other groups who have made a dress of mesh and a chair. Let's go upside. Here we have Frida and Clara, who have made
pjäsen. We call it the piece. Yeah, and it's it's supposed to be like kind of what do you call it? Like sculptural. Yeah, like a piece in the office where you can like gather together and do different things, chores, and also like use it in different ways.
And it's supposed to like for each person who choose to use it, it will like show the personal things that you put on it, and like
it's supposed to change like after how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jag ska lyssna lite.
And here we have
our bending wood chair.
Very cool. Yeah. You can introduce yourself first.
Yeah, my name is Alva.
And this is?
Emil.
Can you tell us more about your concept behind the chair?
Yeah, so we've been working with kind of tension and force people to go to the office again now when the COVID thing is over, and with maybe the free soul and the feeling of being stuck, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is ashwood that's easy to bend. And our idea was that in the same way that people are constrained in the office, we wanted to constrain this material by building a frame and like bending it using clamps. And that way we took a natural material and sort of forced it into our will.
Very interesting. Thank you. Now we're going upstairs. Here we have Julia. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us more about your project.
Yeah, so this is project C4, and me and my partner bought a old copier and tried to make it more adaptable for the human body. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And here we have Elias and Simon.
Hi. So we made a concrete chair that's inspired by 3 folders. So you can see like here's one open folder, here's one, 2, and there's the third one.
Yeah, and we made 2 cast forms, and it weighs about 70 kilos.
Yeah, and we wanted to construct a chair that was kind of not that practical, because we felt that the office was kind of focusing too much on, like the concept behind the office is like focusing very much on efficiency and everything being like practical. So that's kind of our thought behind the uselessness of it.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we introduce our project? Last one. Kom. Nej, var med. So this is our project, where we have chosen to work with old computer keys and create a jacket and a large scaled stool of a computer key.
Yeah, the project was meaning to recycling electrical products and reuse things to make new things.
Exactly. So we have sewn the jacket, and then we have attached about 21 keyboards, like keyboard keys, yeah, to it, which took a while.
Time.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Okay, now let's go to the video.
Eu sempre tive fascínio enorme pelas construções em madeira.
É um material que nos persegue desde que nascemos.
Ao qual todos nós atribuímos uma enorme ideia de conforto.
É um material que normalmente tem sido muito mais introduzido no interior.
Mas cada vez mais sentimos no mercado uma consciência de postura ecológica e, portanto, temos de facto muitos clientes que nos procuram para construirmos em madeira.
Toda a gente sabe e reconhece que a madeira é um material que envelhece com grande naturalidade e que acrescenta valor ao projeto ao longo do tempo.
Faz parte, é o bonito dela, não é? É um material que envelhece e que precisa de cuidado e de carinho, como todos os seres viventes.
É uma relação com as pessoas muito particular e essa relação tem a ver com esse sentir da madeira, com o cheiro da madeira. Não há ninguém que não goste da madeira.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome, Sarah. We're very happy to have you here today.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for electing the film for screening at your festival, Land Architecture Film Festival.
We have some questions for you and your film. you're making. The first one is what makes you choose to work with wood in this film?
So I was invited by a company actually to make like a corporate video. But in the process, we end up challenging so the company and me as well to make the film much more than just about this carpenter, but more about a tribute to Portuguese architecture made by wood. And what really surprised me during this process was that I discovered that Portugal has a lot more wood, interesting architecture made by wood than I thought. And it was really interesting as well to see how passionate I think that you can see that in the film, how passionate architects was to be talking about wood, because they were not just talking about their work made by wood, but they were talking about memories that they have about wood. For instance, one architect remember the sound that he used to hear on his grandma's house, this kind of when you walk, this kind of sound that wood make, and that he used this kind of memories to his work. And besides the film just have 16 minutes, I have a much more longer conversation with this architect. So it was truly an inspiration to see how passionate they were about this issue about wood, and how wood is an ancient material, but at the same time, it could also be the future material for building.
Thank you for a very good answer. And Matilda, I have some question for you too.
Yes. Could you take us through your filmmaking process?
I didn't understand, sorry?
Could you tell us more about your filmmaking process?
Okay, so in the beginning, so I didn't have much of the plan. We just choose like 8 architects. And in the end, I thought, well, it will be interesting to choose eight themes like the 8 architects. And I realized during this conversation they have their own view, but at the same time, there were themes that both were talking always talking about. For instance, we choose the one chapter is time, another chapter is carpenter. So I now realized that they weren't talking. These interviews were not filmed in the same room, although they seem to be talking to each other. And I tried to make in this film a dialogue with these architects. And in the meantime, you can also see the pictures of some of their work. And I've been talking to a lot of people that watch this film. For instance, they are not architects, and they are amazing how these works are in Portugal. So it's really good that this film, and it's our goal, that this film is somehow could translate into give some information to people, acknowledge them, but at the same time inspire them to look forward to this kind of architecture with wood. It's not just a Scandinavian architecture that can use wood, you know, and that's interesting to see how people. It's interesting to show people with this film how we also Portuguese architects are building in wood.
Thank you for your answer, and thank you for participating in this talk.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk. Also, because with all of our films, we try to get people closer to architecture, not just showing this to architects, but also to general public. So thank you very much again for us to allow us to travel with to allow us with this film make the Portuguese architecture travel around the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
København er en af verdens bedste byer, i hvert fald for københavnerne.
Tre gange inden for de sidste 7 år, der er København blevet nummer 1 som verdens bedste by at bo i.
Byen har rigtig mange kvaliteter, også nogle kvaliteter, man ikke havde før. Men det er også blevet en meget skæv by.
Den er muligvis verdens bedste for sådan et velhavende segment. Men i et socialt perspektiv vil jeg ikke mene, at vi har verdens bedste by.
Der er noget her, der er helt galt.
Jeg kan ikke sige nok gange, hvor meget vi skal lægge os i selen for hele tiden at sikre en by for alle mennesker. Unge og gamle og uanset baggrund.
Det her, det er jo et problem i alle verdens store byer.
Hvis vi bare lader det flyde, og tingene går, som det går i dag, så bliver det en by for dem, som har en høj løn.
Der er jo noget faustiansk over det her. Vi har indgået en eller anden handel. Vi har jo også fået herligheder, men vi har også afgivet mere, end vi selv aner.
We have a guest in the studio. Welcome, Hans Christian Post.
Thank you so much.
We're very happy to have you here. You have made a movie called The Best in the World. We have some questions for you. The first one is, can you tell us more about your film?
Well, the film is a film about Copenhagen, which has again and again been rated as the best city in the world, or one of the best cities in the world. And I've known Copenhagen for many years, actually since the 70s, and I lived in Copenhagen since the 90s. I had a short break of 7 years where I was living in Berlin. But apart from that, I've been living all my adult years in Copenhagen. And I've seen this transformation that Copenhagen has been going through to become the best city in the world. And to me, I mean, the Copenhagen is a very, very nice city and has many great qualities. But at the same time, I've seen also the backsides of the transformation, that it's becoming more and more exclusive. It's becoming almost too nice, too successful, and it's become incredibly expensive. So it's very difficult for many people to find a place to live that they can afford, and especially young people cannot find any space anymore to live in the city. So that's why I wanted to question this idea of successful transformation of Copenhagen.
You speak a lot about social and economic divide in Copenhagen. What is your opinion in this question? And do you have any backstory or meaning behind the film?
Yes, I think these social and economical divides that you see in Copenhagen, but also between city and countryside in a country like Denmark, is very problematic. for many reasons. First of all, it's not something that we're really used to in Denmark, Denmark being a social welfare state like Sweden and Norway. So we've always tried to have an egalitarian society where most people have the same amount of welfare and the same amount of income to live their lives. And with the development we've seen in Copenhagen and also in some parts in Aarhus, the city population, especially the people who own their flat or a house, or they have just made so much money that this welfare state balance is tipping. And in the countryside, the development has been a different one. You see stagnation, or you see prices going down and people moving away because there are no opportunities. And of course, it's very much a film about Copenhagen. I mean, it's only a film about Copenhagen, but Copenhagen is also an example of developments we see elsewhere in the world. So I'm sure the development of Stockholm is just the same. The development of Oslo is just the same. Very, very nice cities that have changed dramatically over the last 30 years, and where you also see, these divides between the haves and the have-nots. I don't know how it is in Malmö or Lund, but maybe that's also just a question of time, and you will see the same problematic developments here. So that's why I made it. Yeah.
Thank you for a very good answer. Do you have any future plans of making more movies, or?
Oh, yes, I do. I have 2 more films that I'm working on currently. It's always a bit difficult to get going when you've just finished a film, because I feel like leaning back and taking a break. But I have a project on the pandemic, how people were experiencing the lockdowns in their houses, in their flats, whether it was countryside or city life. I have also a film project on the modernist estate, or the modernist estates that we have in Denmark, the post-war modernist estates, and how we're dealing with these estates today politically. And then I've been invited to be a part of 2 larger international film projects now that might happen, might not happen. So that's a lot of things going on at the moment, but also many things still up in the air. Yeah.
That's a great answer. What is, maybe it's a personal question. What is Copenhagen to you?
Well, to me, I mean, I really like living in Copenhagen, and that was my very first urban experience. But Copenhagen to me is also becoming a little bit dull. It's unexciting. It has become too nice. So it's a nice place to live. It's a nice place to have a family. It's a nice place to have kids, because they can get on their bikes and cycle in the city. It's a very safe city. So and maybe it's even safer than the countryside. I mean, I would be afraid to let my kids loose in the countryside or in the province, but in Copenhagen, it's really no big deal. But it's also, as I mentioned, socially, I don't like the city development that we have seen with these growing divides. And Copenhagen is not giving me any exciting sensations anymore. I mean, I need for a city to be vibrant, to be lively, to be very diverse, to challenge me aesthetically and socially and culturally. And Copenhagen has none of that anymore. So again, it's a city that I really love, and that's also why I have to criticize the development that we've seen in Copenhagen over the last 30 years. Yes.
Last question. You're not an architect. Tell us more about your background and what makes you to start doing film.
Yes, that's true. I'm not an architect. I have architects around me in my family. My father was an engineer, so he always also had to work with architects. But I studied cultural studies at the university, and for some reason I started researching the urban development that was taking part in Germany, that was taking place in Germany after the German reunification. I became interested in that. and started writing about developments in Berlin and developments in Dresden. And then I moved to Berlin and lived there and became interested in filmmaking. So I started also working for some years in a film production company. And later, when I moved back to Copenhagen to write a PhD on urban planning in Berlin, my supervisor suggested that I should also make a film about the topic at the same time. And I did this, and eventually I made my first film, Last Exit Alexanderplatz, which also was shown here 6 or 7 years ago. And that was just so very enjoyable to make a film. That was actually also seen by people and had a very nice festival life. So I decided to continue this work and sort of let go of my scholarly work so far. So that's why, and that's how.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us, and I wish you a good day.
Dall'interno? Deve stare dentro per aprirla. Manca qualcosa però. Quando la apri, prova a darle una piccola spinta e togli la mano. Esatto, lei la riesce a fermare magari con la mano o col piede, insomma. Sì. Ok?
Sono sempre stata appassionata dalla storia e dalle vicende umane e ho sempre trasformato, quando studiavo, insomma, ho sempre trasformato queste storie in favole, in fiabe, immaginando i personaggi e i luoghi in cui hanno vissuto le loro vicende. E quindi mi hanno sempre affascinato anche i luoghi, le scenografie, e ho pensato che Rovigo fosse la mia scenografia, la storia la mia storia, e non solo la mia, insomma, anche delle generazioni precedenti. E quindi mi sono domandata durante il lockdown che cosa facessero i monumenti della città, come vivessero in qualche modo la loro solitudine, questo silenzio, e quanti suoni avremmo potuto sentire nel silenzio totale della città. Per cui ho pensato che potesse essere interessante produrre un video immaginando appunto in questo silenzio i luoghi, raccontare finalmente la loro vicenda, visto che generalmente non parlano.
L'aspetto più interessante è che è, guarda caso, anche quello costitutivo di questo progetto che si intitola Il suono immobile, ideato da Camilla Ferrari, sta un po' nel concetto del ribaltamento, un ribaltamento su un fuoricampo che non è di luogo, banalmente, ma è un fuoricampo di tempo, quel tempo che abbiamo dovuto scegliere per catturare i suoni che ci servivano per questo progetto e che potevano essere solo raccolti in un momento in cui la città è silente, quindi all'alba. Potremmo considerare valida la parola ribaltamento anche per quello che riguarda lo sguardo su questo progetto, che ha cercato appunto di raccontare la città non in quella che è la sua ampiezza, in quella che è la sua volumetria, nella sua a volte anche ipertrofia di edifici, di viali, di piazze, ma al contrario nel focalizzarsi sul piccolo, sul minuto, sul dettaglio che sicuramente anche per la velocità con cui viviamo i luoghi pubblici ci sfugge. Quel dettaglio che magari non è immediatamente rivelatore dell'oggetto più grande di cui fa parte, ma rimane misterioso e in questo mistero rivela forse una sua identità ulteriore.
E quindi mentre Alberto raccoglieva le immagini della città, questi dettagli, queste piccole cose che magari ci sfuggono durante la nostra vita quotidiana, ma che sono lì da sempre, da molto prima di noi, io raccoglievo il materiale sonoro prodotto da questi oggetti, da questi materiali, e domandandomi come può suonare un lavandino, una porta, una serratura, una statua, una finestra, il vetro di una finestra. Raccogliendo dunque suoni, poi ho costruito la colonna sonora di questo piccolo video che vuole essere artistico, cercando di montare insieme i suoni e proponendo quindi un'orchestra in qualche modo sinfonica di oggetti che parlano, che ci raccontano qualcosa, cercando di restituire l'emozione a chi guarderà il video che questi monumenti donano a me nel ricordo delle vicende vissute in ogni luogo della mia città.
Hello. Hello, Alberto. My name is Matilda, and this is Maria, and we'll be interviewing today. How is your day? How has your day been?
Thank you for the invitation. I'm not sure that I have a good bandwidth here. I hope so. I hope that you can hear me and see me, but most of all, hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we have some questions for you about your film.
Was it about like how we did it? How we did it with the overall sound recording, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I think that we spent like 3 or 4 mornings waking up at 3 or 4 a.m. Camila and I, and with all the equipment, we decided to have a very light equipment to move across the town at a very early hour of the day, and we basically tried to capture every sound that was impossible to hear during the day. So we also had some troubles because at a certain point of the morning, all the how can I say the workers that pick up the garbage, the workers that pick up the garbage caused us some problems. The sounding problems with the bus, the noise that they made.
Yes, and how did you decide on which elements to have in your film of the city?
I'm sorry, I must ask you to repeat the question because the sound is not perfect, so I didn't hear it.
How did you decide which elements of the city, and what is your connection to the city when it comes to the film?
Yeah, thank you for participating. Sorry for the connection.
Hello, I'm Yuqing Zheng, the artist of the Shivering Wall. It's such an honor to participate in the Long Architecture Film Festival. Now I live in Netherlands. I wish I could be there, but now I have art projects at Berlin, so I couldn't leave. And most of my work is talk about and discuss about the disorder of each people um, in the present moment of the self consciousness. That is, you sometimes you feel that you don't belong here, or why you here, or sometimes you wondering that how you become this kind of situation. So I wish all the best, and if you have any feedback of my videos, you could write to me or Google me and try to contact me, and we could discuss. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy my video. Bye.
Huh?
Now we have a new guest in our studio. Welcome, Ebba.
Thank you.
And Ebba is an architecture student in Lund University, and they are making a lot of movies. Can you tell us more about your movie?
Yeah, so first of all, we built some models from paintings that Hammershøi has created, and after that we made films in groups. So yeah, and doing some kind of narrative and things. And yeah, it's the first time we've worked with film this year, so it's been very exciting and as well new as well. So they're very short; they're like 1 or 2 minutes long. So we've worked a lot with effects and transitions and the storyline and all those kind of things. So they all are, even though we've worked with the same models, the same rooms, all films turned out very differently. Yeah.
What were some difficulties when you were filming that you noticed?
Most of us didn't have like professional cameras, so we filmed with an iPhone or something like that, and then you had to adjust the lighting and those things. But yeah, and as for most of us, we haven't really worked a lot with Premiere Pro and those editing programs, so that was new as well. But most of us learned really fast. So it's all those things in the process, like getting the lighting and the sound and the effects, and to tie that all together to create an interesting film and that keeps your attention span and doesn't bore you. They do be short, but still they have a lot of story in them as well. So yeah, we've learned a lot this week. We only had a week to film, so we were very effective, and yeah.
Do you have any plans to make more movies in the future?
I hope so. I'm really hoping that we will work a lot more with film, and when we've learned a bit more about these programs and gotten a bit more professional, because it's a very good way to display our models and what we've created, and work with light, because yeah, that's one of the biggest like purposes of this assignment, to create the right kind of lighting and how that works in the room. And that's of course very, very important in all kind of architecture and interior design and everything, to tie it together with the lighting and lamps and those sort of things.
We have also worked with film for the first time, and I noticed that it was very difficult with perspectives and transitions and light setting as well. Do you have any tips for any new filmmakers?
I guess you just have to try over again, multiple times. And some of us use this black box when it's a really, really dark room, to focus the light in certain ways. I hid under a trash bin and a lot of very uncomfortable positions. So you have to kind of think outside the box to be able to get that extra effect. And what we faced also some problems with the sound was when we tried to record like our own footsteps and something like that. We didn't have the professional microphones and equipment to do so. So we got all this background noise. So then we had to like download from the internet. So next time we should consider getting some better equipment to make our own. Yeah.
So we're all studying architecture in Lund University. So I have some questions for you guys. Why did you choose to study architecture?
I think it's the creativeness and the possibility to create your own things, and you can choose to do a lot of different things when you get into the working part of your life as well. You can do interior design, you can do like building houses or with a lot of it's a lot of possibilities. And you, what did you choose architecture?
That's a very big question, but I think mostly because it's a very creative work. What do you call it? Work form. Yeah. And you can compared to an artist, you can actually enter your creation, which I think is very cool, and it's full scale and so on. Why did you choose architecture?
I've always been like art, and I've been drawing since I was tiny kid. And I liked architecture too. It's very cool to create something that you like dreamed before and then see it in the real life. It's very cool.
I guess it's the 3D kind of aspect to it as well, because I've always liked to draw and paint, but it's always very 2D. So as you've said, both of you, to be able to enter and experience it in different ways, in creating spaces for people. That's mostly why I chose this path, and making places where you enjoy being, and you can make it in a lot of different ways. So what have you liked the most your first year, because you're both second year students, right?
I think it's to try new techniques of drawing and create things. Because before I was just drawing by hand. Now we're like trying to use Rhino and other programs to draw things in 3D and stuff like that.
I think it's creating models of different kinds, because I've always been drawing on a paper and it's been very 2D, as you said. And now we're able to create small models, bigger models, and it's really been quite the learning process. As well as traveling. We have been doing some field trips to Copenhagen, and you've been to Paris and Bordeaux, and we went to Madrid. And
Yeah, we went a lot of trips to learn about architecture, so it was cool.
Did you like study the buildings and those sort of things, or were you just walking around? And did you have any assignments when you were there?
Yeah, we did actually have an assignment after the trip. Yeah, and we got to learn about the buildings and the history about it.
Thank you so much for participating.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great day.
Thanks. Very nice to be here.
My dear, she wrote, I am now going away for some time. I hope you will be well. She set aside the sheet, took up a second one, and wrote, My dear, I am now going away for some time. I hope you will be well. A third sheet consisted of pin marks that did not add up to any intelligible lines.
Hi Kenji, and welcome.
Hi, hold on. Let me, hi.
Hi. We're happy to have you here today. We have some questions for you and your work of your film.
Oh, okay, I'm not hearing you that well, but I understand you have questions.
Questions for you. The first one is, how did you work with sound and light in your film?
There's not a direct relation in that movie, but yeah, well, in this case, I work with well, if you've seen the film, there are like many parallel voices, right, that you hear. They're all quotes and about different topics that are kind of interwoven. And yeah, so the film is about more than one thing, right? It's a little bit challenging to describe in a few words because of that, but we could say it's a contemplation of an entanglement or an interwovenness, and you have that in the audio as well. So with those voices that you hear, and in the images, they're all. This is all shot at night, right? It's all documentary material, and because everything is shot at night, and there's a lot of building with glass, and you see a lot of lights that direct and also reflected lights, right? And those windows and those glass parts. So it's you know it's showing let's say fragments of a urban fabric that are quite also multi-layered and have quite a few things happening in them. So there are counterpoints in them, right? And the lights are part of that. So of course, when I shot, I took that into account. So those you have moving lights, well, things you see moving, cars or people, or that you see directly, and some of them are just reflected, and sometimes you might not be sure which one is which. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Could you describe your film for anyone who has not watched it?
Yes. Well, it's always a bit of a quandary if people haven't seen it, because I don't want to tell people what to see in it, see in the film. They should decide for themselves. But as I was saying previously, right? It's yeah, it describes an entanglement of different things, different topics. Some of them related to the brain, right? Like there's something about multitasking, aging, sleep, the effects of technologies, and there's also it's also about architecture and capitalism as well, right? And so you have those images that are, it's all shot in Japan. It's part of a urban fabric in more than one city. This is not only about one place, and a soundtrack, as I described, that has many voices with those quotes for different topics. So you have this multitasking on the sound level and the image level. They interact together. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Have you been living in Japan before? Or why did you choose to make your movie in Japan?
Yes, so I've never really lived in Japan, but I have. I'm half Japanese. My mother, so my mother is Japanese, and so I've spent time in the country since my childhood. Not on at different moments, right? So I never lived there, so I wasn't raised as a typical Japanese person, but so I have this relationship with those landscapes and that country that is in part close and in part with a distance. Yeah, if that's.
Do you have some plans for future projects?
Oh, if I'm planning, yes, I'm writing something, and I would love to do another film in Japan as well. This is not my only film that's been shot there, and there's been some thoughts about that, but it's not. I have nothing that I'm going to start to shoot next week. So everything is more in the planning, thinking stadium right now. Yeah.
Have you been doing a lot of films before?
I've done a few, yeah. So they're some of them are quite different from this one. Some of them are more I mean, some of them are with actors, and some of them are not. So documentary work as well as fiction work, and there's often like an experimental side to what I do, but it's in a very different way. So it can be in the staging or the way I work with actors or not. And yes, and there are common points between those works, but sometimes the aesthetic approach is very different.
How does your filmmaking process look like?
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on the project. I mean, in this case, so those are different topics I'm interested in, and which I feel have those connections that are there to discover or to reflect about in the movie. When I traveled to Japan, I knew I wanted to shoot, but at the time I shot, I didn't know yet how the film would be. So those things, this putting all of it together happened afterwards. So it's like it's been like a process about along a couple of years actually. Yeah, the film has been shot, I think, in 2017, the material. So it's been a little while ago. Yeah.
That's quite a while.
Yes, and I've done something else in the meantime, and then I went back to the material later. But those things happen, and sometimes it's good because you have more distance from it, and I had the luxury to be able to do that in this case. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for spending time with us. We're happy that you're participating in this festival.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks very much. I hope you enjoy the movie, and I would love to answer any questions, but that won't be possible here now. But please feel free to email me.
Okay. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
好房子就像好男人一样，可靠，值得信赖。强而有力，察觉四方，知所去，察所来。好男人稳稳当当，勇往直前。欢迎来到一宅一生。
位好，我们这是我们的方式非常好，
拆房子让我改变很大，因为我觉得我在那个时候将要失去燕子岩，将要失去我的家的时候，我才发现我找到了我自己。
Hello to Lund in Sweden. Hello from Singapore. I'm Ella Reidel. I'm the director of A Pile of Ghosts, but also of We Will Always Have Paris. So I'm really happy that you are showing my work in your Architecture Film Festival. Actually, all my films are always related to architecture and urbanization processes, especially in China. So for China, it's already my third film where I'm looking into urbanization of China. And this film is based on a 3 years research I did on ghost cities in China. And I embarked on a trip and was not only looking for the places, but I was also wondering who would be the protagonists, and I did castings, and so the whole process of searching is really reflected in the film and in that process of making that film. What kind of film is it? It is a hybrid film. It is in between documentary and fiction, as that's also for both films. And so it starts off with documentary and halfway it turns into kind of a ghost story, a pseudo-romance of urbanization. And but still, whatever you see, it's not invented. It's based on observations and the way I see the situation there. And with the performances, I wanted to actually emphasize on the reality and how it feels. Wish you all the best, and really thank you for showing my film.
We have a new guest in here. We have Marco. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be guest of this festival. Marco Pusterla is my name, and I am one of the sponsors, together with my colleagues, of this event. Jacobson Pusterla, our company, is together with other offices. Just to mention, I hope I will not forget too many, but Johan Sundberg Architecture and Foyab Arkitekter and Plan- and Byggnadskonst are some of the offices that has been supporting actually this festival for several years. I can also say that I met quite early Elsbeta Brunberg, that was the founder of the Lunds Architecture Film Festival, and we all sort of believed in her and this idea. I'm so happy that the festival, for the 12th year, I guess, it's still going on, and it's better than any time before, I think, I must say.
Could you tell us more about yourself and your works?
Well, as you understood, I'm an architect. I'm Italian, and I was in Sweden for the first time as an Erasmus student. I was under the university time very curious about looking what was going on outside the Italian borders, and I ended up here by coincidence, and I sort of got stuck. I'm still here, and but I really enjoy working in Sweden as an architect. So that's more or less how I ended up here. Thank you very much for these few seconds with you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, I'm Jack Cochran.
I'm Pam Falkenberg.
Together, we're Outlier Moving Pictures. Our film, Street Level, The Concrete Landscape, pairs a poem extracted from J.G. Ballard's novel, High Rise, with footage shot in Austin, Texas.
In 2021, Austin briefly became the #1 city in the world where people wanted to move, replacing London, only to fall off the list a year later when housing prices skyrocketed and became unaffordable. Our film shows just what that big developer feeding frenzy looked like as we turned our multiple restless exploratory cameras on our hometown, combined with a jarring soundscape and a profusion of fragmented views and stunning digital transitions so complex that they repeatedly crashed our editing software, showing the real consequences of becoming a world-class city.
Hello, my name is Matilda, and this is Maria, and we're both architecture students, and we'll be interviewing.
Tell us, who are you guys?
I'm Jack Cochran.
And I'm Pam Falkenberg.
And we together were Outlier Moving Pictures, and we made the film I Want to Breathe Sweet Air.
The first question is, what is your connection to the city of Austin?
What is your connection to the city of Austin? We live here. It's a nice place. I don't know. What do you want to say?
Jack, we met in graduate school at the University of Iowa, which is in the Midwest. And I stayed and finished my PhD, but Jack decided he wasn't interested in being an academic, and he went out to Hollywood and became a Hollywood cinematographer. And he had a full career there and a family, although his wife died unexpectedly of a bad cancer, and he ended up having to be Mr. Mom. So towards the end of that, while they were in school, he did a lot of music videos, so he didn't have to go out. But anyway, eventually they got out of high school, went to college, moved to Austin and Houston. And at that point, when Jack decided that he was kind of done in LA, he moved to Austin. So that's how he ended up there. Then at some point, LinkedIn said he might know me, but LinkedIn never suggested that I might know Jack. Fortunately, he hit make a connection. So that's how I got involved. So, like 30 years later, we're back together. We made films together when we were young. Now we make films together again. I still have a house in Rockford, Illinois, so we go back and forth, but we do a lot of films about eco stuff and, all over. So sometimes it's good to be based in the Midwest. Sometimes it's good to be based in Austin. And Jack is the Austinite, but I spend a lot of time here as well. And that's how the seeing what happened when Austin became a world-class city, we were right here to see that.
Mm-hmm. You're right at the street level. I get it.
Yeah, and Jack named the wrong film title.
It's street level.
Yeah,
that's why you're asking about us.
Landscape. Yeah, so Jack
ahead.
named
Next
a
question.
previous film.
Next question.
Could you describe your film?
It's basically a look at Austin, Texas from street level. And I guess it's just showing you the concrete landscape that it's become.
Yeah, and it's when we got the idea, Jack is a poet, and he thought the dystopian novel
High Rise
was very apropos. That imagines a whole different problem with like modern society, but his descriptions of the city were very apt. So we borrowed those to help provide context for all of our images. And we had a lot of fun with this because it let us in order to show the dystopian aspects, we got to play around with a lot of really interesting digital effects, which we think add to the views that we shot driving around Austin. Mostly using our iPhone because it has the best stabilization, and the streets aren't always that smooth. So to get those really beautiful, smooth tracking shots, you want the best stabilization you can get. And action cam guys, that's the best stabilization you're going to get. So a lot of our footage was shot with an iPhone, and we think it gives a very intimate view of the city. And it's surprising, because it's a surprising world-class city. All this stuff is happening. And yet the city center is kind of empty. I mean, it's not really that
vibrant.
It's not really that. It's not really a great place for people. The people are all locked up in the high rises. whether they're commercial or residential.
What was the backstory of the film?
We kind of fell into making architecture films because we're interested in a variety of, we could call us activist filmmakers. And I started on early, in college studying anthropology and sociology. So, the relationship between people and their infrastructure, is very interesting. We did a film previously that was surprisingly successful at architecture film festivals called Scary Places, Shapes and Sizes. And that was about how
traffic.
About traffic. Basically, that instead of a lot of cities now, especially in the U.S., are designed more as conduit for cars than as social spaces for people, and that has a very dystopian aspect. And I when we were driving around shooting on a film about kind of
freeways.
Well, that wasn't freeways. We were really working on the Lucy film, the one about oil extraction in the Permian Basin. But anyway, once you see strip mining and that kind of energy extraction, you start to see that freeway construction looks a lot like that. There's a lot of soil stripping and all that. But the other thing, when we were driving around just to get to locations, I would say, because there's no winter here, so the scale of the flying buttresses and the ramps could be much more than they would be in the Midwest, because the freezing and thawing is really deadly on the concrete, so they're not quite so elaborate. And I said, if aliens saw these, excavated these, thousands of years in the future, they'd be like, what crazy monuments are these? Because I don't know that the first thing, another civilization would imagine would be American car culture. And we do think that, because the individual buildings in Austin are beautiful, but in the context of the dystopian traffic and the endless traffic jams and whatnot, there are bigger ways to look at the city, but most of the planners aren't. It's one thing at a time. It's kind of a hodgepodge. Even it's a hodgepodge, because as fast as in Texas, as fast as they build new freeways, they're jammed again. And then you have to rip more stuff down and try to make wider conduits for even more cars so that people can commute in from even longer distances away. I understand why architects are talking about, the 15-minute city. The scary thing, though, is that only really wealthy cities and wealthy neighborhoods can achieve that. But that is a much better quality of life to think about, on a micro level. Can people get all the things they need without having to drive these enormous distances, which means we have to, basically rape the planet to extract more fossil fuels. And we can see where that's leading to. So,
next question.
What is the message behind your film?
Wake up, I guess. Wake up and use the collective needs to speak up and say there's better ways to live, and that massive making, developers race to the place where people want to move to, and then they make the prices go up and the congestion get worse, so that until people don't want to move here anymore, and then they move on to the next place. That seems like a shitty way to run the world. Sorry for the bad language there.
Do you have any plans for future projects?
Yeah, we're working on a few things. Go ahead.
We're working on a film about
plastics.
Plastic refining in Cancer Alley. You may not know about, but it's the most polluted area on Earth, and it has the most concentrated amount of refineries and adjunct refineries. But the big oil in Texas and elsewhere can see that we're going to have electric cars. We're going to solve some of that. But then they doubled down on plastic. Plastic is forever. If you don't count the environmental cost, it's cheaper than glass, cheaper than anything else. But you end up with these forever chemicals that are very difficult to eradicate in the environment and very toxic. So they're also, the oil industry also is kind of very devious, because they do a lot of research, but they don't share it. So they know how bad it all is, but they're just covering it up. Oh, and also buying up patents for cleaner energy, which they hang on to and don't use. And Cancer Alley is a place where that when after the Civil War in the U.S. and the slaves were free, you ended up with small farms and freeholders. So where they put these plants are in a minority community, a poor minority community that don't have any political power. So, the government's kind of co-opted because they make taxes on the refineries. And we're going to make a film about all that. And we shot once.
Yeah, we're going back and shoot.
And we're going to go again
in November.
I look forward to hear more about that. But for now, I'll thank you for joining us here. And I wish you a good day.
I hope you enjoyed that film.
I did. I watched it, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the island of Singapore. This is our adventure.
For me, there seemed to be another story there that had to be told, that had not been told.
Yanaki?
Natureza é natureza e arquitetura é geometria.
Olá, amigos do ArchFilmland. Meu nome é Jean Begerot, sou diretor de filmes e documentários, de arquitetura, design, artes. E um dos filmes selecionados para essa noite que a gente ficou muito feliz foi o bloco Em Construção.
Eu sempre tive fascínio enorme pelas construções em madeira.
É um material que nos persegue desde que nascemos.
Ao qual todos nós atribuímos uma enorme ideia de conforto.
Não há ninguém que não goste de madeira.
Självklart finns det en naturlig variation i dagsljus. Det gör det ju. Men det finns inte flimmer på det sätt i dagsljus.
The bactericidal potential of ordinary window-filtered sunlight may be similar to that of ultraviolet light across dosages that are relevant in actual buildings.
Massmedia visar bilder av likartade områden från 1960-talet med stora skivhus där många invandrare syns. Husen i dessa områden får bära skulden för rader av olösta samhällsproblem och välfärdsbrister. Många ser idag mycket negativt på miljonprogrammets bostadsområden. De beskrivs som utanförskapsområden med stora sociala problem och undermåliga miljöer. Men stämmer dessa bilder med verkligheten?
the most fundamental task of architecture is create and determine a place for the human being to observe the world, including the cosmos.
Thank you for watching. You can watch every film on ArchFilm at home for 7 days. Yeah, see you next time.